This is Joy Foote. Welcome to Pine Mountain, then and now.
Before we get started on today's murder story, I want to tell you about Our Town Trivia. Just like the name suggests, Our Town Trivia is a trivia game about our town, Pine Mountain. It's like a trivia game you may enjoy at a local restaurant, but the questions are entirely about Pine Mountain. What makes this month's game especially fun is that the questions will be all about the murders I discuss in this month's episodes. And I will be in costume, dressed as one of the characters portrayed in the murder stories from this month. So I hope you'll join me, my friends and neighbors, at Dakota's Counter on October 29th at 11:30 a.m. The game is free, and lunch is Dutch treat. Before I get into the details of this unbelievable but true story, there are a few landmarks in town that are important to share. The Cat's Meow building was originally built in 1892 and opened as Murrah Brothers Mercantile. The murder victim's home was the very picturesque and now closed Chipley Murrah Bed and Breakfast on Harris Street. And in case you didn't know, we used to have a railroad station right in the middle of town, in fact, on Highway 27. If you go into the Chipley Historical Center, you can see an aerial shot of how the town looked before they removed the railroad station and straightened Highway 27. Now let's set the scene for you on this remarkable tale about a murder of a prominent citizen of Chipley and the escape from jail that followed. In last week's episode, I shared with you the duel between Virgil Irvin and Joe Hastey. Well, this murder happened just 3 weeks later, on Sunday, June 10th, 1906, and it is, in my opinion, the revenge of Joe Hastey's death. The victim was T.T. Murrah, 40 years old and one of the most prominent men in town. He was the president of the Bank of Chipley and a partner in Murrah Brothers Mercantile. He was also on the governor's staff and a candidate for the state senate. The shooter was Ab Hastey, the brother of Joe Hastey. Joe is one of the people that died in the duel on May 23, 1906, and also in the story I shared with you last week. Anyway, Ab Hastey was 44 years old, a widower with 4 children. Ab had 1 child with his first wife, who died, and then had 3 children with his second wife, who also died. Now let's get into the shocking events of that day. It was 6:50 p.m., and T.T. Murrah, his brother Geo Murrah, the postmaster C.J. Jackson, and C.H. Brooks were standing between 2 tracks at the south end of the railroad depot, just shooting the breeze. They were waiting for the 7 o'clock train to arrive. Ab Hastey was nearby, walking in town. He strolled toward T.T. Murrah, his brother Geo, Postmaster Jackson, and Mr. Brooks. The newspaper reported that he did not appear to be interested in anything particular and spoke pleasantly to them. Mr. Geo Murrah noticed that Ab Hastey had his hand on his pistol in his coat pocket, but even that didn't seem unusual, especially since the gunfight at Hoke Smith's speech. The entire town was on edge. But after speaking some pleasantries, and out of the blue, Ab Hastey raised his pistol and fired at T.T. Murrah. T.T. Murrah, while grasping for Ab Hastey's pistol, exclaimed, "He has shot me, and I'm shot hard." At about the same time, Geo Murrah grasped Hastey by the throat and threw him to the ground. But before the gun was removed from Hastey's hands, he fired at least 2 more shots, aiming at the Postmaster Jackson, who, we believe, was an eyewitness to the shooting on May 23rd. When Jackson ran, he accidentally stumbled and fell into a ditch. It was the fall that saved his life. for the bullets went where he otherwise would have been. By the time Postmaster Jackson stood up, Hastey had been overpowered by Mr. Geo Murrah and Mr. Charles Brooks, and sadly, T.T. Murrah was dead. Marshal Murphy arrived soon thereafter and covered Hastey with his pistol and placed him under arrest. Ab Hastey was placed in the jail by the marshal and left in the care of a guard keeper. The body of T.T. Murrah was quickly taken up and carried to his beautiful home about 100 yards from the depot. That's the former Chipley Murrah Bed and Breakfast. But the story isn't over. After dark, the guard keeper left the jail and went to another part of town to see the mayor about securing additional guards. Apparently, they spent a lot of time trying to secure more guards, but none were had. In the meantime, no one looked to see whether Hastey was still in jail until about 11 o'clock that night, when the 2 deputies sent up from Hamilton arrived. It was then that the lock of the jail door was found on the street. A brief but heavy rain obliterated the footprints of anyone who had gone to release the prisoner, if in fact there were any. A reward initially of $250 and later raised to $500 was announced for any information leading to the capture of Ab Hastey. But he was never found. In my search to find out what could have happened to him, I reviewed court records in Hamilton. The Ab Hastey indictment was moved to a, quote, dead docket every 6 months for about 3 years until finally abandoned. A dead docket is what I think of as a cold case today. The saying in Chipley is that when people got in trouble in town, they moved to Texas. Well, I did a little sleuthing, and this is what I believed happened. I believe that Ab Hastey escaped to Texas and took one of his sons with him, who was only 13 years old at the time. I suspect this because I found that lineage from his family in Texas and reached out to one of the great-great-grandchildren of Ab Hastey. She did not know anything about the murder. And you must wonder about the motive. Why would Ab want to kill T.T. Murrah, and for that matter, the Postmaster Jackson? I think Ab Hastey was under the impression T.T. Murrah would be instrumental in pushing the prosecution for the death of his brother, Joe Hastey. Remember how there were 6 arrested for the murder of Joe Hastey, but none were convicted? When I first started reading about this story in the newspapers, I couldn't believe it. You just can't make this stuff up. The Hastey family was pretty famous in Chipley during the early 1900s, and I have been so fascinated by all of the newspaper articles. And here's a little side note, in case you're interested. The Postmaster Jackson left Chipley, and his wife discharged the duties of the post office. Figure that one out. The Chipley Women's Club presents Fall into Fashion Show on Saturday, October 19th. It's a fun gathering with a social, a fashion show, and lunch. The cost is $50, and all proceeds go to maintain the scholarship fund and historical building. The social kicks off at 10:30 a.m., with the fashion show following at 11 a.m., and the lunch at noon. Please RSVP by either calling Julia Keating at 706-457-4460 or emailing her at juliaskeating@gmail.com. There's an artist open house on Saturday, October 19th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Cat's Meow Warehouse Annex. The artists are the very talented Sarah West and Michele West, who comes to us from the Sarah West Gallery of Fine Art in Smith Station, Alabama. Both artists will be on hand with pottery and original pastels, inks, watercolors, and more. In addition to items for sale at the event, They will be accepting commissions for the Christmas season. For more amazing details about Sarah and Michele's work, check out their website, www.thesarahwestgalleryoffineart.com.
Today's episode was brought to you by Tours with Joy, the guided walking tours through Pine Mountain. There are 2 tours available, the Wild West Days of Chipley and the Beautiful Murals. Check out tourswithjoy.com for more details. Special thanks goes out to the Chipley Historical Center for fact-checking this episode. The beautiful art and music for the show was created by Silly Bug Studios. My next episode is on Wednesday, October 23rd. Hope to see you around town.